Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Costume Co channel. And today we're doing another costume designer interview. Today I have my guest Gaby Acosta. She is the co-costume designer of the series 1923. We have 2 seasons out at the moment, and I believe that's the conclusion of the 2 seasons. But anyway, before we get into the show, I just wanted to say hello to Gaby. Hi, Gaby.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks so much for doing this with us today. By the way, where are you in the world at this moment?
I'm in LA.
Oh, you are? Okay. So
Mhm.
you're a little bit behind me. I'm in Toronto, Canada. So
Okay,
we
nice.
like to represent Canada.
Nice. My best friend lives in Vancouver.
Oh, no way. That's wonderful. There's actually a really great film community there. So
Yeah,
maybe you'll have an opportunity to work there at some point.
I hope so one day.
Yeah. So, but anyway, before we get into 1923, why don't you just tell everyone a little bit about yourself and how maybe you first got interested in doing costume design?
You know, I've always loved film. I've always since I was little, me and my mom especially would love going on Saturdays to the movies, do that double feature. We used to watch everything, from cartoons to action movie. We weren't like careful with the, oh, it's rated R and you're 7. We kind of
Yeah.
just watched any film. So I think that's where my love for going to the movies kind of started. But I grew up in Tijuana, Mexico, where I'm from. And so that really wasn't anything that you would think to do. I mean, costume design is not something that there's courses there even now in Tijuana specifically that I know. So being a costume designer was very like not a thing in my mind. When I came to the States and studied, I went to FITM, the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandise in LA, and I got into visual communications because even then I wasn't sure about design. Um, but I got to be involved with so many producers and stylists and designers, and got to, dress models. That was my first fashion job, was dressing models behind the stage at like runway shows. And so it wasn't until then that I was like, oh, like, okay, this is awesome. Like, how can I meld both of these worlds together? Because, my passion for fashion wasn't in the same level as film and TV. And I still had that, like, I want to work in film and TV. And how can I do that now that I have these skills and I know all of this? So it wasn't until I got all of that experience in the fashion industry uh, and working closely with the producers, with the designers, with the stylists, that I realized that this was something that could be a career, like a viable career. And that's when I decided to, kind of make that shift into TV and film.
Yeah, I was going to say a lot of designers I've spoken to come through the fashion track. Like they may not have gone to school for
Mm.
costume design or may not even have known about costume design. So that's really, really cool. You arrived at what your dream was. Um,
Yeah, yeah. It was
I
it
was
was
going to ask you a question though. Like when you're watching films in Tijuana, by the way, I'm saying it in a terrible Canadian accent. Um, were you watching English language films, like American films?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's it's in Spanish we say fronteriza, right? So it's like we're right at the border. And so
Yes.
we get a lot of Americans, a lot of American trends in TJ, as we call it affectionately. And so yeah, so I've always watched movies and TV in English, which is why, also my mom learned English, I learned English in that way and going to school. But yeah, no, we watched them in English, and that's how they promote them there. They do have the double, like they double them, of course. But really, I think most of the people in TJ do watch the films in English, and they keep true to what it was. So
Oh, I love hearing that story. Now I know in your brief it mentions a little bit about your background, so and your culture and what that means to you as a creative person, as a costume designer. So how does your culture, Mexican culture, shape your view as being a costume designer or your work as a costume designer?
I mean, that is what makes me who I am. my heritage is so important. And I think it's about representation. Had I met people in costume design that were Hispanic, maybe I would have been drawn to it at a younger age, but that was something that, I didn't get to see. And so for me, being a Mexican woman, coming from a Mexican mother, who cleaned houses is something that is like hard work, determination, never giving up, no matter what negativity is around you. Um, it's like you just got to keep going, and I think that is so built in me, that I've that has helped me be what I am and how I work. And that's how I work, is I give everything, and I work really hard. I have a lot of ownership and passionate feelings towards anything I do, with the people I work with, representing who I am, and trying to show people who I am, and never being ashamed of like being from Tijuana and speaking in Spanish, and having people understand me through my culture. And I just hope that with all of this, it's the representation is what I get here, because I hope one day I can help open doors for someone else who doesn't really know, and then can see, oh, well, I can also do that, and I wish I would have had that growing up.
Yeah, I was just going to mention to you, by the way, and this is really weird because just a week ago I was interviewing Anna Terrazas. Are
Mhm.
you familiar with her?
I
Uh,
don't know her personally, no.
yeah, so she did a movie called Pedro Paramo, which is
Oh, yeah.
yes,
Mhm.
and she Roma, and then and anyway, I interviewed her for Eddington, so it was really interesting hearing her perspective on working in Mexico and being a Mexican costume designer, because I believe she's in Mexico City. So
Right.
maybe the Mexican community is going to take over then.
I mean, I hope so. It's very different because, if they work in Mexico City, that's very different than here,
Mhm,
and so I don't personally know that many costume designers that are Mexican. I know of, Mayas Rubio,
mhm.
Salvador Perez. I've seen him said hi in passing at an event or something, but never had a chance to work with anybody else who is Mexican in this capacity. So yeah, it's very interesting to hear the stories. I've never gotten to work in Mexico on a project. The only time I've worked in Mexico was when I was working on Fear the Walking Dead, and
Mm.
the first season, and they were shooting in Rosarito. And that helped me because my family still lives in TJ. And so I would shop in LA, and I would literally just come and cross the clothes to TJ. And we would have the fittings there. But that's my only experience working in Mexico. And I would love one day to be able to do kind of something there, and experience that for sure.
By the way, your mom must be so proud watching your shows and seeing your work on
Oh,
the screen.
she's so proud. My whole family, they're so supportive.
That's
It's
amazing.
such a
I love
community, and that's what I love so much about our culture, is that
it.
it's
Mhm.
the community and the uplifting within each other. And everyone, in Mexico, I've had the chance to meet the um, consulate here in LA. His name is Carlos, and he is amazing and has invited me to these amazing events because, the Mexican community, indigenous community, we all like support each other
Mhm.
100% and back each other up. So even when there's things that aren't great, we have each other to
It's
help.
amazing. By the way, I live in Toronto. We just gave Guillermo del Toro the key to the city, which is a big deal in our city.
I love him. That's one of my dreams, to work
Yeah.
with him.
Oh,
To
absolutely. Yes. Well, you
work
should come
with
to
the
Toronto and
3.
work with him.
I would hope so. I'm gonna
But
try.
anyway, I want to talk about 1923. We have some time to talk about that. Well, tell me a little bit about this. So, okay, maybe you can explain for me. So, Janie Bryant, she's the costume designer, and I know that you've worked with her before. So, how did you meet her? What's your relationship with her? And, or, going into this, and then also maybe explain what it is a co-costume designer does. And by the way, I failed to mention congratulations on your Emmy nomination. That's
Thank
so
you.
exciting. Yes.
Thank you
So
so much.
maybe, sorry,
Yeah.
that was like a four-pronged question. Hopefully
Let
you
me
remember what I asked.
I'll answer as best as I can.
Sure.
Well, I met Janie in 2020. She was doing the show Why Women Kill. I got the opportunity to meet with her, and we just clicked. We had like such great working chemistry. I tend to be a little bit of a jokester and try to lighten things up when things get tense, as it, always gets with tight schedules and, things that need to get done. And that's kind of how we started our journey. I learned so much from her during that show, and she is like the queen of femininity. And, like I learned so much about beautiful women and beautiful dresses because of her, which is her, I think that she loves that and she gets so passionate about that. So it's great to see that, that side. And we just kind of did that and worked continuously for the last 4 years on different projects. And we just kind of built that like great working relationship. And, when the opportunity came to do 1923 for season 1, it was such a grand scale in different countries that we were filming, and there was a lot of divide and conquer, so, my job is has always been with her to support and try to, make sure that the ship stays afloat in a good, positive and correct way. And, I have the freedom to, be able to do fittings and work a lot with my favorite, the cowboys and the stunts and all of that, and having that freedom to create these like fun characters, and make sure that it's in line with, not only the script and not only, what Janie's vision is as well. And, so it's kind of just like that collaboration of just making sure that the support system is there, that we build what is necessary together, and just have make a difference in like these characters as much as we can. And that's kind of been like the journey through this, and being part of 1923. I'm so grateful to have had the opportunity to work with her for so long and learn so many things, and it's always good to have these lessons.
Yeah, no, so you were talking about dividing and conquering. So would you go off to one unit and then she would go off to a different unit, or did she have assistant designers that would go off to other units, or how did you,
Yeah,
did
so
you do that? Like,
it just kind of, we had 2 assistant designers, during season 1. It was, even at a bigger scale because we were, they were in Africa, the time difference. So I was with one, assistant designer in Montana. She was with another assistant designer in Africa and Malta, So it was a lot, but, we were always very communicative. She would send me emails, and, I'd be up at 3 a.m., like checking, making sure we're like on the same page. So, it was a lot of that. And, again, just like that support, that like teamwork of everybody, of the entire team. And yeah, so it's just, it is like sometimes one of us is stuck on a fitting, she's establishing, or vice versa, depending. Sometimes it would have to be in LA, you have to stay in Montana, so it's like, it is a lot of divide and conquer in that sense, but with always the respect and the, the respect of the script, the respect of the storyline, to make sure we put the right things on screen, and the respect of, her as well, that I've always had. And, so it's just that kind of work.
I was thinking, thank God we have this technology nowadays, because in 1923, so many things could have been solved with just a text, right? Like, Helen Mirren wondering, are they going to make it back through the snowstorm?
We're almost there.
Right? No, there's no phones.
No phone. I mean, even doing this job now,
Yeah.
with technology is so much different than even 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I had to, we had to print our maps. We had to, it wasn't as easy.
Polaroids.
It's not easy. Yeah.
That's more than 10 years ago.
Yeah. Just things like used to take more time. That's for sure.
Exactly. So a creative question for you. So, what was your initial approach to costuming a series like 1923? Because you've got, I mean, honestly, watching from my perspective, it feels very grounded, very historically accurate, but you also have to tell a story. So what were some of the tools that you were using to do that, to tell your story, but maybe try to keep it somewhat historically accurate as well?
Well, I mean, I think that's one of the biggest thing is making sure that it's historically accurate or as accurate as we can make it. So it was the research more than anything. I personally love that part of the job, and getting to read and look for all of the historical research. And now with technology, there is a lot of information, of course, on the internet, but I always also tend to go to the books and go to original sources, newspapers, and things like that, because the internet, it can be false, and there's a lot of assimilation in the internet and things like that, especially for like the native culture that we
Mhm.
had in the show. So it's like really going to the libraries. We had also a um, Native American consultant, Mo Brings Plenty. So, if we had questions, we were very communicative with him. He was very helpful. We've met him since 1883. So it was very easy to talk to him and also just make sure we're on track, especially with those things. And yeah, I think that's the way to keep it historically accurate is the research, and making sure that we're not compromising because of weather, because of things. So there's always a way to like find a solution to make it work, and I think that's something that's key. One thing that like for example, in one of these fancy dance scenes, in 1923, the hems were longer, and I remember Janie always being like, they need to be to the ankle, and so
Mhm.
that's
Yes.
a lot of the
As opposed
dresses.
to a day look, right? Which would be maybe, yeah, okay.
The dresses, were so much shorter, like the vintage ones we'd find, because, a lot of people would cut them because of the flapper era and all of that. And so, making sure we were true to all of those specific details, I think is what makes a difference. And so knowing kind of like some of the rules of that time period
Mhm.
but that only comes with research and knowledge, and that is, I think, the most important thing, and the most fun thing for me to like start with any
And
project.
also, like, all the undergarments and the hosiery and the footwear and,
All of
the
it,
handbags.
head to
Um,
toe, head to toe.
it's a full, and the hair and makeup and everything, it's all beautifully
Yeah,
cohesive.
and I think that like with any period show, and I've experienced with any period show or a sci-fi show, really it is from the inside out. So you start your costume from the inside out, and so that's something that we did here too, and that we were very like making sure that we had all that and that we were prepared.
Now, I know you touched a bit on the locations and the weather. The weather is a big issue, and I don't know how much of it is real in the show, like the blizzards and all that type of thing. But I know you had to deal with extreme heat and sometimes extreme cold. So, do you want to tell me a little bit how that challenge was and how your team approached it, so that the audience wasn't in on it, but the actors were comfortable?
Yes, I mean, I think that was one of the biggest challenges for us, is that because we want the actors to be able to act and feel comfortable, but we also don't want to compromise the look. And I did get to experience with Runza's horse and Tiona at some points, and some of those very hot looking locations, which were very hot locations. We had to
Hmm.
sleeves off their shirts, because they were so hot and they had layers, and we were like, how can we try to accommodate them just a little bit more? Our supervisor, Jax, she bought a lot of um, ice packs to use, like vests and
Hmm. That's
things
what NASA does. Apparently, they put like
and
cooling
things.
vests
Yeah,
underneath.
so cooling vests.
Mhm.
So we had also, um, you know, ice rings. We had a bunch of stuff to try to accommodate them, making pockets to just put a little bit of some kind of ice pack, even though it would melt very quickly. The set team, had to keep um, changing things up a lot. So it was that was very difficult to keep people cool. And then on the flip side, once we got to the cold, now that we've made clothes not so hot, because we knew we were going to be in hot weather. Now we're in actually very cold weather.
Mhm.
And how do we keep them warm? And we had electric thermals, and we were just always on top of them and making sure that people were comfortable without compromising what the look was going to be.
Yeah, actually, I learned about electric thermals on another interview I did with another designer. So that was interesting. So how do they work?
They're battery operated.
Oh, like amazing, right?
So the truck customer would, they would charge the batteries, and then every day change them out, and throughout the day change out the battery. And they could it has a little button right here, and they could bring it up higher, bring it up lower, and just accommodate their own warmth. And they really did work. They helped a
Mhm.
lot. We also had hand warmers. We had little things like that we would put in their shoes. But those electric thermals really, really came in handy.
Yeah, it's amazing, like what the technology we had. Because I know we used to have hot shots. You could put them in the pockets, put them in the mitts, and things like that. But having a full body, because when your body is cold, everything is cold, right? Like
Everything cold.
your core, I should say. So now it says I read that you collaborated quite closely with the stunt team,
Mhm.
and which are, stunts. My gosh, these people like are the hardest working people and deserve all. And obviously, too, you also had to do multiples and everything for all the stunts. And I have to say, by the way, watching this, I could not see any stunt work. Like it just like completely flawless. I didn't notice any transitions at all. Maybe because I'm so immersed in the story, but honestly, I couldn't. So, how did you go about making costumes that look authentic, but again, you have the practical, ability to be able to move and your stunts and everything like that? Sorry if that's a very long question.
Yeah, no, I mean, kind of the same process.
Mhm.
We treated all the stunt people like a principal. And so we would schedule them in our fitting schedule, which would make the fitting schedule very, very long because there were so many of them. And
Mhm.
that was the fun part, is how do we make 20 cowboys different when they're all standing together? So we utilized a lot of different hat shapes. We had Bear, who's a Montanan. Bear is a Montanan hat maker, and
Oh, okay, wonderful.
he would come and help us reshape hats that we had rented, and just trying to have a color palette during those stunt times, with those cowboys specifically, was the only way that we could make them a little bit different, whether it was the stunt cowboys or the sheepers, or they had a very distinct look so that you knew who was who. The sheepers were our uh, coal miners, dirty overalls, baggy. One of the things we always discussed to make sure we did in fittings was that they were very distinct in the baggy clothes
Mhm.
and stuff like that, like very ill-fitting. And the cowboys were more put together, but had warm tone colors. So those were all discussions that through the process of all of it we had to execute uh physically once we got the stunt guys. And we had so many, it was very quick, very back to back fittings, and that was exhausting but super fun to do. And then when we got to see them all together, that was like, wow, look at all the different hats, it's so cool.
Yeah. I love also, by the way, I love that you use local designers and craftspeople. So I didn't have this in my question, but did you try to where you could source locally when you could?
Yeah, when we could. I mean, obviously, we did find quite a few hat people in Montana and Texas. There was a Texas person, which I'll have to get back to you on the name, but they were in Elgin, Texas, which was a little bit further where we were located, but they were able to make double hats for us when we needed one for a stunt double, and they were able to do it quickly and at a
Mhm.
great price. So it was awesome to kind of meet people. And in Montana, because we had experience working there from season 1 and 1883, we had already met, these hat people, jewelers, Native American stores that had pieces.
Mhm.
So yeah, whenever we could, we would definitely go and try to find and source authentic pieces if we could.
Now, one of the storylines to me, especially, is extremely powerful. Is the Indigenous storyline of Tiona, and right from the get go, it's
Yeah.
just so like heartbreaking. And then you end up with these like 3 characters that I know you work quite closely with. So we had Tiona Rainwater runs with his horse, and Pete Plenty Clouds, which by the way, I was very sad to learn had to be recast in season 2. So that must have been very devastating for your team. Um,
Mhm.
yeah. But did you want to tell me a little bit about like working with them and doing the fittings and so on?
Yeah, they're so sweet.
I'd like to hear your second show while you're talking.
They're so sweet. I had such a fun, time with them. We met them in season 1 at the time where we were in 2 different locations. So again, the divide and conquer came through. But
Mhm.
with Tiona and runs his horse, we wanted to make sure we could incorporate, the authenticity of Western world with the Native community at this point, with also a little bit of the past, and that's why runs his horse has his those shafts, like the woolly shafts, kind of still on, that we loved. The elk
Mhm.
teeth, for example, were something important and significant, and we were looking for real elk teeth, so that was a fun challenge to do, and we did find some at a native
Oh, sorry, that is, yeah.
reservation store that we were able to find, and it was important for Michael that he had something like that because they were hunters, and that meant wealth in their community. And so we wanted to bring these special touches to them, and I just love being able to be part of these stories and being part of this whole community and being able to shed light to the truth of what this was, because it's not sugar coated, and it shouldn't be, and to just honestly be a part of it has been such an amazing experience for me to do and be a part of and remember all of these beautiful characters and beautiful people that they are outside of the camera is just so special to be with. I don't really have much more to say other than being able to be part of that representation, like I said earlier, is the most important thing for me.
Hmm.
So being able to be part of telling this story for the masses is really a great honor.
There's one thing I noticed as a Canadian is that Michael actually has a Hudson's Bay blanket coat that looks. Did you make it?
Yes, we did make
Yeah.
that with some Pendleton blankets and
Yeah.
dyed them, and we saw a research photo of a Native
Got it
American
there
that
too.
had something
Mhm.
very similar. And when we were making it uh, in season 1, we made it in our Butte location, so it was made in-house, which was great. And yeah, we were able to find these amazing blankets and dye them and distress them and make it look so real. And it was unfortunate that this season he didn't get to wear it too much
Yeah,
because
he's got it bundled up there. I remember it from season 1 though. But
well,
why I was gonna mention it to you is because in Canada, like the Hudson's Bay Company has gone out of business. Like they're the oldest company in our country. But the brand, the Hudson's Bay blanket brand is being bought out by another company. So you can continue to buy it. But you do see them come up on like vintage sites and things like that. Like they're
yeah,
sort of sought after.
they're
And of
so
course it's tied into some very negative storytelling from a Canadian point of view that they would have been given the blankets with smallpox in it. So there's that very
Right.
terrible, cultural like history behind it as well. So anyway, I just thought I'd point that out to you because I'm Canadian. We're
Good.
very
I love that's my favorite coat. I mean, I think
I love it so much. But I
Wednesday
did want
is my favorite costume for me. Uh,
But
you
I
know,
was very excited to see that Michael, he did an interview with a Hollywood Reporter and he shouted you out. And I thought that was amazing.
oh, thank you.
Yeah. So he
Really
said,
so sweet of him.
yeah. So he was talking about how when he was doing his fittings, and he said, by the way, he said, you're really fun. Like, so
Oh,
you're right when you bring the fun. But that he did ask about adding the elk teeth and also shells in his necklace. And I love that. I love that collaboration and that he was able to have that agency to be able to sort of tell you what he would love to bring to the character. And it sounds like he did that with all of the actors though.
oh yeah, it's all about collaboration, right? I mean,
Mhm.
it's a big team, big show, and we just want to make sure it's right. And so, especially with the native side of it, I want to make sure that it's right and get any information that I can so that we can execute it. And that was a thing that was always the communication with Janie and I, and hey, I just learned this from Michael, or I just learned this from Mo, and how do we want to incorporate it? And always that collaboration and unity with everybody was great.
Mhm. I have these other pictures now. I'm not sure if you can because these take place in Texas. So if I show these to you, are you able to tell me if if you were involved in this? This is
Yeah,
with Deputy. Yeah. So I
our
wanted to know a little bit about this one, especially Mamie,
well,
a
maybe
female. Yeah.
Janie fit her in LA.
Okay.
I caught the back end of that one when they got to Texas.
Okay.
So
And but you did Two Spears though. Did you help with that one?
Two Spears, yes, Two Spears. Two Spears was fun
Mhm.
to do. Again, it was a great opportunity to find really authentic, great textural pieces, which I think we were able to find. And Dougie Hall, he's so fun and sweet, and again, he fit into it perfectly.
Mhm.
We actually found these pieces, these vintage pieces, so we had to pivot in who this character was going to be, and we didn't have much time to unfortunately build something for him custom, but we were able to find these amazing pieces that were vintage and just worked so lovely with him and his color and his
Mhm.
story. And yeah, that's another costume that I love so much. And we also were able to get a Thunderbird, which Cameron, our one of our props masters,
Oh, okay.
he is also Native American, and his wife made it for us. And so the Thunderbird that he's wearing, it was made by also a Native American, and we got to incorporate that, which was so awesome.
Yeah. And I think this is a wide shot of him
Hmm.
here.
Yes.
And
Uh,
also, by the way, I know this sounds like a weird thing to say, but they work really well with the colors of the animals. Like, do you keep that in mind as well? Like the color of their horse when you're doing their
I
outfit?
mean, I think everything we try
Mhm.
to always talk to the art department and the wranglers and see what they're going to be on. But sometimes it is a little bit of luck. And I
Mhm.
want to say it's more of us being prepared and knowing that what we've done in the past, and the experience we have with horses and riders and everything, kind of bring all of that into
Yeah,
effect.
because
Mhm.
here's the trio here, also with their horses, but just also because you've got this beautiful greenery in the background, which is, and the beautiful landscapes and the mountains and everything. So that's just, helpful as well, having these gorgeous scenery, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I think, part of the whole Texas note that we had was warmth. So I think we were trying to make sure we had that, and anytime we got anything was to keep in line with whatever notes we had as well.
Yeah, and the other thing I found really interesting is even though there is obviously historically you have these Native American costumes, but there is some Western influence in there too.
Yeah,
So they would have like some pieces obviously that would be slightly Western.
yeah. and at this time, this was something that Mo Brings Plentywood was really vocal about, was
Mhm.
that at this time they have been assimilating to the Western culture. They have lost a lot of what they used to have. So it was important to show that they weren't in regalia anymore. They weren't in their customary clothing because they have lost their language. They have lost their things. So they
Mhm.
have to wear what the Westerners wear at this
Mhm.
point. Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. I was mentioning to Stephanie that in Canada we had a show called Anne with an E, and this is only the second time I've seen a
Oh,
residential school like represented because they did touch on it in Anne with an E
mhm.
from a Canadian perspective, but it was nothing to the extent that we're seeing here. Like it was just sort of
Yes.
like a snapshot. So, to your knowledge, is this first time at least in a television series that this is done to the fullest extent that it's been done?
I I'm not I can't speak, firmly about it. I don't remember seeing something so wide, in such a capacity like this, such an outreach that 1923 has, that there has been a show or a movie that touches really on these schools and these reservations. And I don't personally remember having seen anything like this. So again, being part of something like this that showcases these stories is the most important thing for me to be involved in.
Yeah, I myself is included, I can't recall anything like this,
Mhm.
on another show or movie. Um, Now before we have a few minutes before we wrap up, so just wanted to kinda ask you, like, what kind of impact do you hope your presence in the industry will have on upcoming Latino and Indigenous designers moving forward? We touched on this a little bit at the beginning, but
Yeah, for me, again, I mean, I hate to repeat myself, but it is having some representation of us, remembering that we are here, that we have always been here, we will always be here, and how we are a positive, uh, we are positive people, and we are people who need light sometimes, and need that opportunity. So that if I'm one of the few people that can shed a little bit light to our community and give somebody hope and give someone the bravery to be okay, well, Gabby did it, and she wasn't, she was born in Tijuana, she was had no influences in the industry, didn't have an uncle or an aunt or
yeah,
anybody.
no nepotism.
No, which happens a lot.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah, there's so much of it.
right. So being someone who worked from little to now, and being that representation to my community, being open is, I hope, brings people a little bit more education about who we are, especially during these times that are so difficult
Mhm.
for my culture, my community, to show that we matter, that we are important, that we make a difference, and people having their heads held up high. I think that is what I hope, that I can inspire one person to say, yeah, I can do that too.
Yeah, by the way, have you had anybody reach out to you from your community, like, showing an interest in getting into film or costuming?
I have had a little bit more
Mm.
communication with people, or a lot of support from Mexico. Just people so excited, so happy to see, wow, a Mexican, wow, Tijuanense up there. And
Mhm.
that is the most important thing I've ever done. Despite all the shows, despite all the opportunities to be working on something like this, it's being able to have reach to my community and be seen as someone who works hard and loves what they do, and know that it can be done. And I think that is what's the most important thing.
Well, Gabby, I just have one more question for you. So, looking ahead, so what kind of stories or projects would you be most excited to work on? Like, are there any aspects of Mexican or indigenous experiences that you'd like to do? Like I was mentioning to you earlier that Anna had worked on Pedro Paramo in
Oh,
Mexico.
yeah. I love period films. I love sci-fi. So of
Mhm.
course
Oh yeah, me too.
I'd love to be involved in more of those. But my goal is to always be able to tell the stories of Mexicans, of Hispanics, indigenous people. And I hope that I can continue to get the opportunity to work in those projects and do a film on all of this would be amazing. So I just hope that I continue to get the opportunity to work on something like that, because that would be my dream, to just
Mhm.
represent and have our stories told and be part of those stories.
But by the way, well, before I let you go though, do you have anything, is there another spinoff show for Yellowstone that you might be working on? Or is there something else you're allowed to share with me that you're going to be working on?
Nothing I can share just yet.
Okay, okay. No
Soon.
problem. You have to seal that, right? Like, okay. Well, maybe when you're allowed to, maybe you'll come back and talk to us about it.
I hope so. I
Oh
hope
yeah, we'd love to have you back. Thank you so
so.
much.
Thank you so much, Heidi. I really
Oh, this is such
appreciate
a
it.
pleasure.
Such a pleasure to meet you.
You as well. Well, everyone who watched this today, thank you so much. And it was such a lovely pleasure for me to have Gaby Acosta, who is the Emmy nominated co-costume designer on 1923. And it's on Paramount Plus.
Mhm.
But season 2 is out, and that is the final season. So there was just the two, right? I don't know if it was like it started as a limited series and then it ended up becoming because there was that big gap because of the strikes and all that. But
Yeah.
it is done. It's
The
concluded.
story was a little longer, so they.
Yeah, and then if you want to go back and watch, I think it's 1883. You can watch it sort of a standalone show on its own, but it's still in the Yellowstone universe. I understand.
Yes, it is.
Well, well, thanks everyone, and I hope you all have a great day. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.